So
That
that
is
is there.
huge.
So because many persons, we are live on YouTube, you see, on the screen. So there it will be, I'm not capable of seeing that number now, but because I am not that technology savvy. So it will be, it will there also around 300 to that for something. We are capable of managing these things because of your good wishes and supports. Otherwise, very difficult.
It's my duty. Wherever academics and passion
Sir,
is
this
there,
is
it's my
जी जी
duty.
जी जी. Now the vice chancellor of your GNLU, he was my colleague at HNLU,
Okay.
and he is also very much interested in these programs and everything. He will be organizing very good events.
Oh, okay. I think participants' mic has to be muted if
Huh.
it is possible. Yeah.
No, sir, all mics will be muted.
Yeah.
In fact, the voice you are hearing is from my office. I'll just close it.
Oh,
Monica ma'am, some disturbance in your side, ma'am.
Okay, okay, I'll switch off my fan.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
It's all right now?
It's all right, madam. When you're
Yes,
tired.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the fan was.
I think.
Sir, please go ahead, sir.
It's time, sir.
Acha.
Shall we start the event, sir?
Kaushal, I think you can start. Sir, with
Okay,
your
sir.
permission, should we start?
yes, please.
Ji,
Yeah.
ji.
Thank you, sir. Akhilesh, sir, we are starting the event.
Sure,
It's
sir.
record.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Continue, sir.
Okay. Yes, sir. Indeed, it is good afternoon to one and all, everyone. It is indeed a matter of pleasure for us to welcome our learned speaker, Dr. K. Parameshwaran, having vast knowledge and expertise in multidimensional spheres. Sir, we warm-heartedly welcome you to throw some light on the topic jurisprudence from earlier generations to emerging new requirements. Sir, we are glad to have you here with us to nourish our knowledge on the concerned topic. And I'm thankful to our Vice Chancellor, Professor Dr. Mudhu Vinay, and Registrar, Brigadier Rajiv Shetty. I'm also thankful to our Dean in charge, Professor Dr. Yuval Kishore, and Academic Coordinator, Mrs. Monica Khorola ma'am, for their persistence guidance. I'm also welcome our esteemed participants who glorify this event by their active participation. Now, I would like to take this opportunity to invite Professor Dr. Yuval Kishore sir to provide an overview of this topic. So over to you, sir.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much, Kaushal. Good afternoon to everyone present here. Then, at the outset, I wholeheartedly welcome my most learned friend, professor, guide, and a very, very renowned jurist, Mr. K. Parameshwaranji, who has been very kind enough to devote his time with us. I understand, sir, you are very busy, but even then you have spared your valuable time. So we are very much thankful to you, and we welcome you to this third day of the lecture series on jurisprudence. My dear participants, who are mostly the faculty and academicians from other institutions and students from this university as well as other universities, you have seen, I'm talking about by participants, that for the last 2 days we had a wonderful lecture, 2 lectures. Yesterday you have heard Madam Rashmi Salpekar, and who has talked about in detail the theory of sovereignty. And before that, you have heard our Madam Professor Dr. Gurupurkar, who has initiated the topic and discussed about the rights of vulnerable and their position in the jurisprudence. Today, we are very fortunate to have such a learned person who will be capable of speaking on the journey of jurisprudence from the earlier generation to the present generation. So what is needed in the generation, in this generation? That is, such topic is journey of jurisprudence from earlier generations to the emerging new requirements. So sir will be talking about the emerging new requirements. So that way, we are very lucky that sir is here. I'll not be in between you and sir. So I request with folded hand, sir, please speak to academicians here. But 1 minute, I'll request Monica Madam to please introduce very briefly. Madam Monica, please introduce.
Thank you, sir. Again, it's our privilege to have Dr. K. Parameshwaran with us for this webinar on jurisprudence. I would like to introduce him to the participants. Dr. K. Parameshwaran is an associate professor of law at Gujarat National Law University, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. He was former Dean Academic Affairs as well as Alumni Relations at GNLU. He has a core spiritual background owing to his association with Sri Aurobindo Ashram. And it comes as no surprise that he is a member in the governing board of Aurovilla Foundation, Government of India, MHRD, and UNESCO. In addition to this, Dr. Parameshwaran is also the member of World Commission on Environmental Law and International Consortium for Law and Religion Studies, Italy. He has authored a book on the theme of integral dimensions of law and has scores of published journal articles and research papers, both at national and international level, on integrating higher values, ethics in legal knowledge, and professional advocacy. He has regularly conducted training programs for teachers, students, advocates, judges, corporate and legal professionals. He believes in capacity building through workshops and webinars and in bringing practical application of higher values and ethics in law and legal profession as well as in administration of justice. We welcome you, sir, to this webinar, and I would like to invite you to the mic to start your lecture. Thank you.
Please, sir.
Thank you. Greetings and namaste to one and all present here. I thank the Vice Chancellor of this ICFI University, Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore, Dean of the School of Law, ICFI University, Professor Monica, the coordinator of this program, Mr. Abhishek and Mr. Kaushal, and all the participants who are present here for this third day national lecture series on jurisprudence. Before I begin with the topic that is allotted to me, which is the journey of jurisprudence from earlier generations to emerging modern requirements, I would like to congratulate this university and the School of Law for organizing this kind of national lecture series, especially on a topic or a subject called jurisprudence. It is a very bold attempt, very adventurous and path-breaking, especially when we have a situation, an unprecedented crisis of a global pandemic that necessitates all of us to think differently. This situation has forced all of us to bring a new direction to our thinking. What best can be done than conducting a national lecture series on jurisprudence? Because jurisprudence or legal theory is all about thinking. It is just not a subject. It is a thought process. When we think about law, when we think about legal system, when we think about justice, we have to necessarily construct ideas. How do we go about in integrating various heterogeneous variables of the society in order to give them each and everyone their due share? This makes this whole online national lecture series on jurisprudence very relevant, because we have to think differently, we have to bring a new perspective, and we need a new direction. And it can be started best only with a subject or a thought process called jurisprudence. So I thank you. I congratulate you for this most important, effective exercise, which is indispensable for the new requirements of legal research, legal academics, legal education as a whole, towards the humanity, towards the peace, towards the development for all of us. Before I begin with the topic, let me add a small caution that this journey of jurisprudence from earlier generations to the modern emerging requirements cannot be a topic that can be covered in just 1 hour. It is very vast and it is very huge. Hence, I request all of you, all the participants, to bear with me if I summarize things in certain outlines in a quick and fast way, because the whole objective of this exercise as well as my topic is only to kickstart a new thinking. It is to inspire all of you to get back home, to get back to the libraries and start a renewed thinking on each and everyone's favorite subject of law. The mistake that we do very often is that we feel that jurisprudence is a subject. Yes, it is a subject to be studied. It is a legal theory to be discussed. But more than that, it is a thought process that must get ingrained in our legal thinking, in our legal research. If we have that framework, if we have that outline, the 1 hour discussion that I'm going to have with all of you is only to inspire, to make you think in your own subject of choice, the law subject which you are favorite of, be it corporate law or constitutional law or human rights or IP or science technology. In all the subjects, the jurisprudence is common. The jurisprudence is one single embedded thread across all the aspects of lawmaking, execution, and justice. If we have this particular framework in mind, it becomes very easy for us to take from the journey of jurisprudence, starting from the natural law theory, coming to the positive school, then the real school and the critical school, and the current modern requirements. How we are going to survey all these things is what I'm going to share with all of you. My interest in this subject, jurisprudence, is precisely based on legislature, executive, governance, and judiciary. They have to be together. There is only one thought process or subject that can bind all these three aspects of the state or three organs of the state: legislature, executive, governance, and judiciary. The embedding thread, the connecting line, the dots that can be connected only by a jurisprudential thought and a jurisprudential process. So my focus would be for the next 45 minutes is to show how each and every theory, each and every school of thought, each and every thinker developed a particular line of thought in order to address either a legislature or executive governance or judiciary. We may also see that the criticisms that are developed against each and every school is nothing but pointing out why all three are not combined together. Because a sound legal system or the promise of the Constitution is that we need a legal system which is robust, we need a governance which is of public service oriented, and we need justice which is constantly fulfilling each and every individual and the social collectivity. So jurisprudence of all the four law schools or the four legal theories will be intermingling each and every aspect of the legislature, executive governance, and the judiciary. So we will be seeing each and every aspect of it. If you have any questions in between, you can raise the question at the end. We have separate time for that. Or you can also put it in the chat box as a specific question, according to which school of thought you would like to need a clarification and so on. So the first aspect of the natural school. I am very fond of natural school for various reasons. When we say natural school, we very often interchangeably use another terminology called natural law. But if you see natural law or natural theory, the word law in the natural law theory or the natural law school is only 10%. The 90% of it is not law, it is more into the morality. The natural school or the natural theory developed by various scholars, various thinkers, starting from the early generations, say Aristotle, Plato, Hobbes, and so on, and the political theory of the medieval century from Hobbes and Locke and others, and the modern requirements given by Finney's, the Hart and Fuller debate, and all those things. If you see, they stress upon one thing. What is this natural law or what is this natural school theory is nothing but an intersection between what law we want and what is the moral that we should follow. To connect the law and to connect the morality from two different spheres, that connecting point is what is called the natural school, the natural theory. All the scholars and the thinkers, starting from the earliest generations to the current generation, they have always discussed these two spheres of law on one side and morality on another side. How do we bring this together? The problem is the very understanding of law that we have right now is itself a positive understanding, not of the natural school. When we say law, we need a rule, we need a regulation, we need a system, which has started with the positive school, which has started with the positive theories. Whereas when we say natural law, it means something which is felt by all of us. What is it felt by all of us? It is a condition, it is a higher order which is existing in the nature itself. It is some kind of a higher law. It is some kind of a thing with which we have to behave, but it is not visible. It is not tangible. That is the problem of the natural law, which positivists criticize. They say when there is a natural law, when you say we have to behave in a certain way in a society, we have to do things in order to reach towards that. That means you are putting certain normative conditions, normative should. This is how it ought to be. An individual behavior in the society or social behavior in the society is ought to be like this. Where is it ought to be like this? There is this human behavior, there is this human thought, there is this human intention and the human conduct. but they have to behave in such and such a way. That should comes. Where is that should coming from? The natural law theories, they said that this should is there invisible. This should is there inside us. This should is there everywhere. It is something normative. That is how it ought to be. That's why we say it is an ought to be jurisprudence, the should jurisprudence. When Plato and Aristotle, they were asked, what is this ought to be? They brought two interesting elements, one called ethics or morals, another called beauty. So they said that there is a thing called beauty, there is a thing called ethics. That's how it has to be. And then slowly they explained that that thing which is ought to be is precisely because after you perform that particular function, you can discover it by your own reason. Yeah, it's right. This is how it has to be. I used to give a simple example. When we see a kind of a thing on the road, say for example, a dog or anything, normally the tendency is to shout at the dog or take a stone and throw at it. Of course, animal rights activists will not accept this, but we do that. When the dog barks in pain, we turn back to see why is this action done? It has hurt the dog. So till you feel or observe and see outside you that you have hurt by the stimulus of the dog, you don't understand that this should not be done. That is why they say this kind of a morality is nothing but something which is an invisible, intangible order that exists, but it is discoverable by reason. But the discoverability or the discovery of that through reason, it takes some time. But the law or the social collectivity cannot permit you to commit a crime and then realize, oh, I should not commit a crime. Nobody will say, I have to commit a crime to see how the crime is. That would be illogical to live in a society like this. So they say that that which is intangible and invisible, agreeable, it is intangible and invisible. But it is discoverable by reason, not necessarily by you at the first instance, but if somebody has discovered it by reason and if they tell it to you, you should actually use the reason to understand that. But the human mind is such that unless and until we do it in our own senses, within our own senses, we don't realize. This is the problem of human nature. So this problem of human understanding, which normally understands each and everything only by trial and error experimentation of life. This is the problem of human nature because we don't understand what is an action. The connection between the thought and the action is always together. But because of certain social compulsions, because of certain non-reflective thinking, this kind of a natural order, this kind of a morality is being continuously told. So morality or ethics in natural law or the natural philosophy is nothing but a guiding philosophy from above, guiding philosophy from within, which is discoverable by reason. Not necessarily that you insist that you will discover it by reason and only then you will accept. But if somebody has discovered it by reason, that should also be acceptable and that is reasonable. This is exactly where the debate came from Hart and Fuller, John Finnis and so on. They said that where is it? If you say it is intangible and invisible, is it something that which is determinate? They brought the principle of indeterminacy. They said it is very vague. Its source is not visible. Its identification is not clear. It is not objective. But it is visible, feelable, discoverable by reason within, inside. So natural law, when it brought out this theory of morality and brought a higher order, they felt that that which is universal for all of us, pain is common for all of us, happiness is common for all of us, it is universal and it is immutable. And two, this kind of an eternal law, this kind of immutable law is higher than the law which we fix for ourselves by our own thinking. So the problem of natural law or the problem of natural theory is that till you think and you experience, you will not accept it. But it is the fault of whom? It is the fault of the theory and the structure of that higher value, or it is the fault of me? Since we all are anthropocentric in our nature, since we all are speciesist in our nature. So we get to experience things. We feel that there is a thing called experience only when I experience it. This is a very long process. But let us not criticize the natural theory, but that is how the social evolution took place. Several hundreds of years, centuries of years. Man was drawn by instinct. Man was subjected to forces of the nature. He could not see a bigger picture between the microcosm and the macrocosm. There were some people who understood a macrocosm exists, a higher order exists, but not all were capable of seeing it. Only very few were capable of seeing it, as a result of which the difficulty of the natural school came into picture. They said that it is, though it is universal and immutable, it is a higher law and it is discoverable by reason, but its source is not visible. It is invisible. As a result of which, there were a lot of difficulties that came into picture. Yet another difficulty of the natural school, or yet another problem of the natural theory, is that it tried to fix duties, because ought to be, should be, will always make the person to think beforehand, is always making a person to do things after thought process. Action has to be followed by thought. Thought has to precede an action. So natural school, by fixing that there is a higher law which you all have to obey, there is a higher order that we all are bound by, it created some kind of a sense of a duty, or some kind of a difficulty in acting freely. Oh, I need to know what is right, what is wrong. Only then I can do this, I can do that, or I should not do this, I should not do that. So it created this particular difficulty for the free movement of the people. Though the values set by natural law, though the morality set by the natural law, though the higher order set by the natural law, they were correct and they are still correct. But it is unless and until discoverable by the reason, by virtue of the human activity and human thinking, we do not know the importance of it. As a result of which, natural theories or the natural law thinkers, they said these are all fundamental duties that are there, which you have to follow, you should follow. The normativity came. But the moment the normativity coming into the picture, the moment the should coming into the picture, unless and until I experience what it is, my liberty gets curtailed. So they felt, what is this natural theory? What is this natural order? For some reasons, for some scholars, they attributed it to the God, they attributed it to the divine, they attributed it to the nature, which we cannot see with our biological eyes, with our external senses. As a result of which, that which you cannot see, that which you cannot understand, why we should follow, why we should obey, because man is born free. So when natural theory came into picture, it actually awakened in the human being also the sense of freedom and the sense of liberty, as a result of which they felt we cannot accept a thing which is vague, we cannot accept a thing which is invisible in source, though it is discoverable by reason. Even if it is discovered by reason, will we be given a chance of excuse? So these were the difficulties which were there with the natural school. As a result of which, slowly the positivism came. So what is this positivism? Positivism very clearly explains legal positivism. That which is means that which is visible, whose source is identifiable, whose actions are verifiable. It is scientific, it is objective. So legal positivism, when it came as a direct, a frontal attack on the natural school, especially on its indeterminacy, especially on its invisibility, especially on its intangibility. Though some of the positive scholars from Italy and other places, they did agree that there are certain immutable values, there are certain eternal universal values which we agree, but you have to give human nature, human being, human action a chance to experiment and grow and evolve. So how do we do that? Maybe why not we all come together and create a law ourselves? That's exactly the state and society coming into the picture, as a result of which positive law is nothing but a command of the sovereign based on what the society has accepted norms that can be followed by themselves. So here, in the positive school, the human nature and the human society became very conscious and very aware. Let us decide the law which we want. Let us approach the state, let us approach the sovereign, let us approach the king or anyone who is head of the state. We will tell that these are the laws which are capable of following for us, and these are the people who are actually following it, or this amount of followers can be brought into. So some kind of a verifiability came into picture in the place of indeterminacy of the natural. So you can see Bentham, Austin, Solvent, all the positive schools, they stress upon the command, they stress upon the sanction, they stress upon authority, they stress upon the rules which are visible, verifiable. They stress upon the legal system which is negotiable between the state and the society. So what was not possible in the natural school, in which the negotiation between the society and the state, which was missing there, was possible in the positive school, as a result of which it filled the gap which the natural law could not fill. So this particular second generation journey of the legal school or the jurisprudential theories through positive school gave human society and human conscience a vast self-responsibility to decide what law they want, which they can fulfill. Though exceptions may be there that they may not be able to fulfill, at least some kind of a collectivity coming based on certain norms by which they felt very clearly that we must evolve a law which is followable, which can be put into habits and practices. So when you see the positivism and its emergence of it, it actually brought tangibility from the intangibility of the natural law, because there is a sovereign, there is a command, there is an authority. All these are verifiable. As a result of which, it is easily discoverable by reason, or even it stands for reason at the first instance. When I say it stands for reason at the first instance, means when you see a visual sign of a particular law, do this or don't do that. Visible signage, logos, laws, edicts, the formats, the legal system, bringing out a codified rules and regulations, that which is decipherable and readable, need not be discovered each and every time. It is there, ready-made in hand for all of us. That gave a sense of ease, that gave a sense of efficiency and clarity from the point of view of the human nature, from the point of view of the human collectivity, that yes, we have a law which is visible, we have a law which is negotiable, we have a law which is tangible, we have a law which is objective, which we can follow. So the indeterminacy which was attacked on the natural school became very tangible in the most objective positive school. So in the positive school, you can see in a simple way, if there is an input and there is an output. You put this as an input and this is the output that will come. It is so scientific, it is so empirical. So you can also see one of the schools of empiricism started during the times of the legal positivism and so on. We can draw parallels of legal research also in all these things. But that we keep it for a later point of time. But what we need to understand very clearly is that legal positivism brought clarity to the format of the law, not to the format of the ideas. Ideas are one and the same. In natural school, there is an order. In positive school also, there is an order. In natural school, order comes from an invisible source, intangible source. You may call it moral, ethics, or so on. But in a positive school, the same order comes from an authority whom we have empowered. Republic, Vox Republica. We have empowered the king, we have empowered the sovereign, we have empowered the authority to make the law for us, which we know we can follow. So this is the growth of legal positivism which came into picture. So, but positivism, the positivists or the positive theories or the positive thinkers, they brought three interesting ideas in order to attack natural school. One is separate the morals from the laws. Do not bring a moral whose source is not visible, whose source we cannot negotiate. What is called separability thesis. Next is called the pedigree thesis. Pedigree thesis was developed by legal positivists. They said that law means there has to be a structure and a system. There has to be a process, stage 1, 2, 3, and so on, top down or bottom up. Social legal transformation, or law and social transformation between state and society. There has to be two different structures, two different aims, or two different bodies in which one wants others to follow something and the other agrees to it, as a result of which it becomes a law. And then there is a two-way interrelationship between the state and society, between law and society. This is what is called the pedigree thesis. Third, they said that there is also a discretion for, because we cannot predict everything, we cannot fix everything. So there has to be a discretion that needs to be given to maybe the judge or the king, who is going to decide whether a particular law is valid right now or not. He can exempt or he can exclude, he can make an exception, so on. So between the natural school and the positive school, what we see is the journey is that human beings have become more self-aware. Human beings have become more self-responsible in the society. As a result of which, they felt that this is the law, this is the statute which we have to follow. It became very clear. That's exactly what we need to understand. Yet another thing that we need to understand about the positive school is that legalization of rules started happening through the positive school. Legalization of rules, what I mean by that is, you need to have a structure to the rule which you are making. It can't be an invisible rule. It has to be very specific. It has to be objective. It has to be empirical. It has to be rational. We can see it. That is why positive theory says that which is, not that which is ought to be, that which is. Next is not only the legalization of the rules and the legal systems, the social requirements played a very serious role in the enactment of the rules and regulations. So it's a kind of a state and society interrelationship that formed, as a result of which society could tell, these are the laws that we want, these are the norms that we can follow, these are the things that we have to follow. So that kind of a social requirement status to be put before the legal structure formation, that became very important in the positive school. As a result of which, you can see the idea of democracy came into picture. So this is the positive school that got developed over a period of time, say from 14th century to 15th, 16th century, and so on. As a result of which, we can see the natural law, which believed in morality and order, which is invisible and intangible on one side, and slowly the society becoming self-responsibility, taking the self-responsibility and becoming self-aware and explaining what they want, the society, the state, the sovereign, and the subjects, all of them, they started actually mingling together, as a result of which some kind of a cohesion, social cohesion formed. But then this positive school also was not without any criticism. One of the biggest criticism of the positive school is that the time element. Because when we make a law, the social cohesion which takes place in order to produce the law, we make a law, say for example, Statute A, and that Statute A was formed through a social cohesion or a formation of a group at one point of time who wanted a particular law called legal system A. The legal system A, which is a formation of the social cohesion or the social requirements, remains static, constantly getting activated and radiated. But then the problem is the social cohesion, the social requirements which created a legal system A, they are not static, they are actually continuously growing. They are continuously evolving. as a result of which law also need to evolve. But in positive law, such a scope was not there. So you make a law through social cohesion and social requirements. Law becomes very clear, but over a period of time, the society also evolves, the social habits change, the cultures change, people's awareness also increases more, their idea of justice, the sense of justice also increases, but the law remains the same. As a result of which, a new brand of scholars came, what is called realism. This was the greatest contribution by American thinkers. Many American thinkers came out very clearly that positivism has a problem. They identified two problems for positivism. One is the time element. Second is there are also some who are left out in this social cohesion, the marginalized groups, which means it is the demerit of a democracy. You can say a majority rule which decides what a legal system ought to be, what are the legal rules which are to be inside that particular system. That is decided by people who agree to a particular rule A, B, C, and so on. What about those people who do not agree with any of these rule A, B, C? They are marginalized. They are left out from this majority or the majoritarian social cohesion, social requirement. Not that every time the social requirement is always complete and absolute. There are possibilities that sometimes a certain people may not be able to participate or certain people may not agree. So the problem of positivism is that though positivism gave clarity, which was missing in the natural school in terms of its determinacy, in terms of visibility and source. But the problem of positivism is that the social cohesion is not static. The social requirements is not static. Social behavior and the human behavior is not static. It keeps evolving continuously. As a result of which law also ought to evolve. It must be realistic to the social requirements. For example, we have seen how many times Indian Penal Code or the Indian Contract Act 1872 and so on. We keep on amending the provisions in order to adjust to the requirements of the society. So Indian Contract Act or Indian Penal Code is a positive law, is a positive act, command of the sovereign, which we all agreed to have. But the society which is continuously growing is facing a law which is static and not dynamic. In order to make the law dynamic from static position, you require a realist perception. You require a realistic interpretation. That is exactly where realist school came into picture. So realism is nothing but what positivism could not do after a point of time. Realism slowly got into it. It's so beautiful. If you see, I used to tell my students that you can always see even the Supreme Court judgments, say from 1950 to 1960, 1970, you can see very clear rule of the law. But then from 70 onwards, realist school started operating. I happened to meet some of the senior advocates and few judges in the judges training program. I told that the Indian judges were at one point of time, they were all realist judges. They were surprised. How do you say that? I said, you take a graph, you take a statistical study of what Indian constitution was in 1950 to 1960, and then 1960 to 1970, 1970 to 80, 90, 2000 up to 2020. Constitution has remained the same or statute has remained the same, but the interpretation kept on changing in order to address the requirement of the society. That is a realist perspective. Even a simple postcard can become a writ petition. What a daring adventure which we have done. I always used to say that to me, Indian Constitution or the Indian Supreme Court or the Indian judges, what they have done is far reaching than any of the judicial pronouncement across the world. Of course, only with the English speaking judgments I'm talking about. I don't know the non-English speaking judges and the judgments, but by and large, I can say the kind of experiments that we have done, the kind of adventures that we have done, no matter we criticize it as activism or judicial overreach or outreach and so on. Those are all for the people to discuss. But I have always seen that the judiciary is so compassionate to reach out to the mass. And in order to do that, they could tweak the provisions, they could amend the provisions, they could amend the substantive provisions of the procedural norms in order to address a particular. So the American realist school, of course, the Scandinavian realist school is also there, but America played a very serious role in the realist school. They said very clearly, their criticism on the positivism and the natural school is that you make a rule. Say, for example, in a positive context or a positive circumstance, you make a law, you make a statute, you make a provision, you make a rule. The realist school contention is that this rule is subject to interpretation based on facts and circumstances of the case. They said that rules are always fact specific. It is not fixed or absolute. You cannot say simply because a particular social cohesion, a particular social group based on a social requirement created a particular law or created a particular legal system, this law cannot remain. It has to address the changing requirements of the society, changing requirements of the petitioner, changing requirements of the prayers and the relief sought before the court. Means rules are to be interpreted based on the specificity of the facts. So for them, they said that the rules which you are saying, which is very static and absolute, may not be, the command of the sovereign may not be absolute. It needs to be tweaked, fact specific. That's why you can see in the Indian Supreme Court also various doctrines or tests which they develop after a point of time. While explaining it, they make it very clear the application of this doctrine or tests is dependent, application of it is dependent on facts and circumstances of the case. We see. The second contention which the realist put was very interesting to me. They say when a particular petitioner comes before the court of law and invoking a particular provision of law to address a particular relief, the arguments put by the advocate, the arguments put by the petitioner or the defendant, that stimulus can change the mind of the judge to think differently. So they say the realist school is one in which the judges ought to think not only with the background of the law, legal system and the legal provision, keeping it in mind, but they need to bring that particular legal provision in order to address what the petitioner is wanting before us. The judge asks, I'm always surprised by this question when the judge asks, what do you want from the court? It's such a beautiful thing because he has the power to do. Judiciary has the power to do it. But his power to do is to be supplied. The knowledge for that particular action and relief which you seek for needs to be supplied by the advocate, supplied by the petitioner. So rules, interpretations of the rules are not only fact specific, but the result which are arriving out of the interpretation of the rule is also stimulated by the petitioner, stimulated by the people, stimulated by the plaintiff, or stimulated by the advocacy skills. You just see, the same case can fail if it is improperly argued. The same facts and circumstances can be effectively placed before the court if it is argued properly. Judge cannot argue on behalf of the petitioner. Judge has to ask what do you want from the court. If the petitioner doesn't ask what is available, the remedy available, the remedy is also not fixed. Maybe the quantum of compensation can be fixed, but the remedy is a bigger word than compensation, in which you can go beyond the economic determinism as also to social and even psychological. But that needs to be argued. Court also needs to be stimulated. So the realist school, the realists, they say the interpretation of the rule which the command of the sovereign is fact specific, as well as facts do stimulate the dimensions of justice, which is different, which is specific for each and every circumstance. As a result of which they say this justifies the flux of the society which is constantly evolving. In positive school, they accepted society is continuously evolving, as a result of which for each and every requirement they created a law. But this law which is created becomes static, but the society keeps on growing. How do you address it? You need to interpret it in such a way based on the courtroom arguments by the advocates, based on the realistic perspective situation on the court before the parties. So they say the society, which is a constant flux, which is continuously growing, can be addressed, can be given justice only by a realist school who will be able to tweak the provisions that is decided by the positive school. So a judge, uh, 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 a positivist judge keeps the law in background, but he also tweaks, he also knows how much he has to go here or there is dependent on the social conventions and the pressures. You know, there is one interesting book by Benjamin Cardoso, which people should read. It was a series of 16 lectures which he gave in Yale Law School called Stowe's lecture, in which he talks about the consciousness of the judicial reasoning. He says there is a subconscious which plays a very serious role in the mind of a judge, in the mind of an advocate, in the mind of an argument. So that needs to be brought in. As a result of which, the realist schools, the fourth important thing they said was, though positive school gives objectivity and scientific basis for rule making, but you cannot completely, absolutely categorize everything into a straitjacket formula. If you do it, positive law also fails. How does it fail? There will be a revolution from the society which will disturb the order of the state. Do you want that? So, to come back quickly again, you need to narrate the story because it is very interesting. The natural school, the order, the moral, the invisible, intangible order. Though they were all true, it is discoverable by reason, but people don't have time, and it has to be done only by trial and error experimentation. But by trial and error experimentation, you cannot absolve a person committing a crime and injuring somebody and the injustice. So they said it is very vague, it is invisible. Let us make it visible, let us make it tangible, let us make it determinate. Positive school came into picture, the command, the sovereign, the sanction, the law, the order, the structure. But at the same time, the positive school also failed in a way because they cannot catch up with the growth of the evolving society, which is evolving fast. As positivists were accepted by the natural school, so positivists also should allow others to grow. Obvious, this is natural logic. So real school came into picture saying that even within the positive school, there are certain strong categorizations which cannot be made because human nature and the human behavior or the social flux is not static. It is continuously evolving. So this is the legal realism which we have seen. And finally, the critical legal school, which is also very famous in America, they said very clearly, do not call law as a system. Why? They said that where it can be a system, in natural law, it cannot be a system because it is something invisible. In positive law, you have made it as a system, as a result of which you are not able to include everybody, but the society is continuously growing. So how can you make it as a system? Again, the critical school, when they questioned the real school, the positive school, and the natural school, they went back to the same situation of indeterminacy. So it is popularly said that the critical legal school has maximum questions but with less answers. They questioned a lot. Second problem is the critical legal school, they said that the discoverable by reason is not automatic. It is very difficult because human nature and the human behavior, the social behavior involves psychological capacities, as a result of which you cannot make everyone very formal in behavior. This is how he will think. No, it is not like that. Each and everyone's potential is different. And finally, doctrines or tests which you bring out in positive school or realist school, they cannot completely explain the human behavior, which is psychological, which is deep inside. You cannot do it. And finally, the norms which you say in legal school, in the legal positivism as well as in the realist school or the natural school, that is not based on consensus. There are always marginalized groups which are there. So critical school raised a lot of questions. They said that very simply, law is nothing but politics. The power centers which work. Critical school is largely a Marxist in temperamental school. So if you see these four legal theories or the four legal schools or the four thinkers, various thinkers belonging to four schools, they came up with a different time span and they discussed so much, as a result of which we are currently, what is the emerging modern requirements of the jurisprudence? How do we do that? We need to think of what I say, the 6 principles of the modern requirements of the jurisprudence. 1, we have to be life embracing at all levels. 2, we need to be world oriented. And 3, we need to continuously think of solving the problems. And 4, you have to continuously think of collectivity, not just 1 or 2 groups or individuals. And you have to continuously think about building peace and harmony. And finally, the 6th one, it has to be development oriented. So the current requirements of the jurisprudence is these 6 shades of thought: peace building, development oriented, collectivism and harmony, problem solving, world embracing, and life oriented. All these are based on values, starting from the reason up to the level of the individual, starting from the level of the socio-economic up to the psychological. Starting from rights, you need to move towards duties. And you finally need to create a legal system which is not punishment oriented, but also preventive in nature. So, to bring a conclusion to the whole thing, you can see the journey of jurisprudence is nothing but the journey of human evolution of the human society. So beautiful. So you have to understand each and every participant when they take up a particular subject, be it IPR, crime, or constitution, or torts, or whatever be the nature of the law subject which you take, you should identify all the 4 law schools according to your subject requirements. If you do that, you have to combine all the 3, or sorry, all the 4. You require a natural order, you require a positive sanction, you require a realist interpretation, and you require a critical thinking. And if you mix all these things and the 6 principles which I have given, what I call is as the spiritual interpretation or the modern requirement is nothing but moving beyond the social and economic, moving beyond the rights paradigm to duties paradigm, moving beyond reason towards intuition, moving beyond the punitive system to preventive and course correction and so on. That kind of a thing can only give a stability to legal systems, stability to executive governance, which in fact will fulfill the constitution. I used to say all the 4 theories are there in the constitution itself. You just see preamble is a natural theory, but the preamble requires part 3, which is positive. And the part 3 and the preamble also requires 368, which is amendment procedure. And finally, you have rights as well as duties, directive principles of state policy. See, so Indian constitution is a combination of all the 4 laws. But then we need to take it to a higher level. How do we take it to a higher level? You mix match all these things in your subject of study, in your legal research, and your field of interest, and then connect at all levels. Sustainable development, inclusivity, all these are there in the 6 principles which I have given. So this is the journey of jurisprudence from the earlier generations to the modern emerging requirements. I think I have to stop here. I can take questions, anything.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Yeah. Now we'd like to continue with the question answer round. The first question for you, sir. Who gave the principle of indeterminacy in analytical school?
I can't hear.
Yeah. Who gave the principle of indeterminacy in analytical school?
See, indeterminacy is a kind of a thing which is there starting from even in Plato's as well as Aristotle and Socrates, they themselves have said. They say even ethics or beauty is not visible. It is internally feelable. Internally, it has to be internalized. It is there. But the moment you internalize, it is there. So indeterminacy is not one thing just told only by one or two scholars at the later point of time. Indeterminacy is the lack of visibility which we are finding it difficult to cope up with. Otherwise, it is not indeterminate. Man feels, a human being feels in the social behavior what is determinate, what is not determinate. It is very clear. There is no such a thing as indeterminacy in the principle itself. It is only indeterminacy in the person who is not able to see. Even Plato agrees, even Aristotle agrees, even Socrates agrees. These are all greater values, higher good, greater reason, which may not be easily visible to us. It is indeterminate, but it is discoverable. You need to take pain to find it out. And to make you understand that you need to find it out is exactly where these moral orders or higher orders come into play.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, what is an example of legal positivism?
I said very clearly, all the statutes are legal positivism only. It is made by command of the sovereign, not in the earlier context of a crude idea of command or sovereign, but it is by the social participation of what they want, and they reflect it to the state system. You see, you go to Rajya Sabha website and Lok Sabha website or the Ministry of Justice website. They keep asking you recommendations. How do we make new laws? It is there, but hardly we get into such kind of discussions. In fact, I used to say that the best way to study jurisprudence is to get into the Parliament website, Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha, and then find out what are the principles which are already there. Yet another source is take Law Commission website. Very interesting. Yet another source is the PRS website, which gives you all kinds of ideas for you. So all that which is made by human reasoning, by human participation, by social participation is an example of legal possibility.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, how is positivism different from empiricism, and how empiricism affect the development of positivism?
Okay.
And there is one part, sir, also, sir. How far did David Hume contribute in the development of legal positivism?
Yeah, he was one of the foremost contributors for that. But the first question is an interesting question somebody has asked.
Yes.
When you see positivism, that which is verifiable, that which is objectifiable, that which is scientific, that which is visible, that which is calculable, that which can be calculated, 1, 2, 3, and so on. That's exactly where the empiricism forms. Empiricism is nothing but identifying the variables which are social externals. So empiricism is the result of legal positivism. Empiricism is nothing but identifying a particular social external and the interrelationship between all those externals, which we call it as regulation, which we call it as law. So for legal positivism, empiricism was also required. But the moment legal positivism came into picture, the crude aspect of the legal positivism, that it is a command of the sovereign, it slowly moved down to a level in which the society started asking, this is the law that we want. This is the law that we would like to follow. That when you say this is the law that we like to follow, we means who, how many? That needs to be empirical. It can't be invisible. That has to be a group. That is one of the criticisms of the realists, is that the legal positivism who claim empiricism in that, there are also some marginal groups are there because they did not participate in this, because they don't want this kind of a law. So empiricism, which got developed very well in legal positivism, became its own shortcoming later in the journey of jurisprudence, if you see it.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, could it be possible to misuse the rule of natural law for the benefit of church?
Yes, that benefit of
Church.
Yeah, this is yet another criticism put on the natural school, is that the initial natural school was largely based on the observations of the nature. But then slowly the idea of church came into picture. Slowly the idea of religion came into picture across all the religions, as a result of which they started claiming the control of everything. That's why in Germany, the biggest movement came, what is called separation of church and state. They felt that the people who are the social system which is there at a particular time and space, where do they go after their work is over? They go to a particular place to discuss. Where do they go? It will be a place where we all gather and discuss what is the higher law and so on. That was the religious place. Where when they went, they started dictating the rules and regulations, or the religious priests or the religious heads, they started dictating all the rules and regulations, as a result of which king became very close to church, as a result of which sovereign became very close to church. So they felt that the best way to control people is to control through religion, best control through church, control through doctrines, because that is exactly the place where people assemble. So that's exactly in order to bring some kind of secularization to it, in order to bring some kind of a rational understanding to it, the separation of church and state came into picture. As a result of which, the idea of church and our idea of the religion in relation to politics, they started oscillating. As a result of which, realist school also came into picture, and they started also tweaking all these kind of things wherever the rule is, whichever be the source, whether it comes from the religious source, or it comes from the command of the sovereign, or it comes from the higher order which is invisible. They started tweaking all those things, as a result of which they were able to give a better interpretation.
Thank you so much, sir. And the next question is, how come legal positivism did not gain much popularity in India as compared to sociological school?
Yes. No, in fact, it is not completely correct to say that the legal positivism did not fare well. There are a lot of historical anecdotes or historical documents which shows how during the, say, for example, Gupta period, or how during the Pandya period, clear edicts were there, clear rules and regulations were there. But it was not that structured or systematized in such a way that it did not give scope for higher order. So in India, it was largely intuition based, or what you call the bhav based. In India, it was more duties than rights. In India, it is more bhav based, the feeling based, which is also one of the elements of the natural school. In India, it was largely based on that. But over a period of time, we also went through civilizational developments, and various new innovations came, as a result of which legal positivism developed through 17th century advent, and the British also came into picture. And you can see regulating acts 1, 2, 3, 4, all are legal positivisms. You see the Government of India Act 1935, and before that 1970, and after that the Constitution came coming into picture. So many laws were developed. But the problem with the Indian system is that we are largely a country in which social values and of higher order are mixed everywhere. But we want to actually bring everything into a legal positivism, which is very difficult. As a result of which, we are finding a lot of difficulties. So in India also, legal positivism was there, and it is there, and it is continuing. But society is by and large believing in the natural order of life. So this is a very interesting case study that one can do. How legal positivism helped, or whether legal positivism helped India to grow in legalization of rules or not, can be discussed. Yes.
Thank you, sir. And the next question is, do you think that Hart and Kelson were influenced by Max Weber? And is it justified to compare John Austin with Carl Smith?
See, each and every writer, be it Carl Smith, Austin, Max Weber, and so on, they all had one interesting thing. They were all driven by the sociological necessities and the sociological requirements at that time. It will be very difficult for anyone, and that too for me also, to say whether they were actually influenced by a particular. We can make our own surmises and presumptions. Yeah, he was influenced. John Austin was. There are people who used to say that Austin was influenced by Darwin, because this legal positivism is command of the sovereign, and in the command of the sovereign, structure of the society is there. There is a race to it, and Darwin's theory of the survival of the fittest. They all bring all these things together. But these are all surmises and presumptions which we can make unless and until those authors, they themselves say that I'm influenced by X, Y, Z. It is a little difficult to say, though we can draw analogy based on the time sequence. It is possible.
Yes, sir.
Is
And yes, sir. Next question is, what did critical legal school criticize about the realist school?
yeah, because as I have said, the realist school, they were largely concentrating on too much of details. So what happened in the realist school, as I have explained, is that rules are fact specific. The interpretations are also the stimulus of the facts in the court, and the society is a continuous fluctuation with a lot of variations, as a result of which you cannot make any categorization. Though critical school also more or less borders on these views, but they started even questioning the very existence of the law as a system. They said that if you say law as a system, it has to be systematic and there should not be anything vague. There should not be anything ambiguous. Because if you say law is a system, it has to be clear, it has to be foolproof, it has to be absolute. The very fact that there are exceptions to law, the very fact there are some people who have not participated in the law making, the very fact that the reasoning is not fully deducible from each and every action, the very fact that doctrines and tests which are propounded by the courts is not going to explain the social behavior fully, because there are also psychological stimulus involved in that. So when critical school criticized the real school, positive school, and the natural school, their criticism was largely based on the indeterminacy, and they don't want to accept any kind of a formalism which is being imposed on things. They said that this legal structure and all the interpretations are a power structure, as a result of which we are not able to have any kind of a freedom. You say law as a system, but it is very indeterminate, be it natural school, positive school, or real school. You say law as inherent reasoning, but it is actually not. There are some people who do not reason it that way. Their behavior is different, though they are subject to reason, though they can discover things by reason, but they behave differently. You say doctrines and tests which the judges propound or the legal systems propound, they explain the human behavior, but the human behavior is just not social, it is also psychological and deeper. You say that legal norms are always based on consensus. No, it is not based on consensus. There are always certain marginal groups. There are always even one or two individuals, they raise the red flag. They say that we are not accepting this kind of a law. So which means critical legal studies, major criticism is that society is heterogeneous to such an extent, it is a complete variation and a flux, as a result of which you cannot decipher anything, as a result of which you cannot systematize anything into a law. Whether you agree with this kind of a position given by the critical legal school or not is a different thing. If you see Unger's Roberto Unger and Peter Gabel and so many people who propounded a lot of theories in the critical school, they are also slowly moving towards saying that we cannot just say that law as a system cannot exist because there is a heterogeneity, there is a variation, there is a flux, but we need a law. How do we bring a law? If you see Unger's latest YouTube lectures on nihilism, or Peter Gabel's latest lectures on spirituality and law, they all point out the lack of consistency in the critical legal studies itself, those theories. Because these are the two people who are very popular in the critical legal school who founded it. So critical legal schools criticisms are very genuine and valid, but they have not pointed out any answers. They have not given any answers. That's why when I said that the title which you have given me is very appropriate, the journey of jurisprudence from earlier generations to the current modern emerging requirements. What is the emerging requirement is what I have told. The 6 principles. Law has to be life oriented, law has to be world embracing, law has to be peace building, law has to be collective harmonious oriented, law has to be development oriented, and finally, law has to be problem solving. If you construct law and justice based on these 6 principles, I feel emerging requirements can be tackled. These are my answers to critical legal studies.
Thank you. Thank you, sir. And the next question is, kindly elaborate how are the 4 schools embodied in the Constitution of India?
Yeah, preamble is the natural school. But the natural school cannot remain invisible and vague. Why do we say justice, equality, liberty, fraternity? Preamble did not create justice, equality, liberty, fraternity. They made it very clear. We adopt. Preamble says at the end of it, we adopt justice, equality, liberty, fraternity. At the same time, they need to be emphasized in a legal positivist way. That is why part 3 came into picture. So part 3 of the Indian Constitution is legal positivism, whereas preamble of the Indian Constitution is clearly natural school, you can say, because it believes in the eternal, immutable, universal order. Justice is common, liberty is common, equality is common. Though its application may be of a slight difference according to the social context, but nobody negotiates liberty itself. It is non-negotiable. That's why when it came to fundamental rights in part 3, they use the word it is fundamental, that which is inalienable. You cannot separate it from human life. The moment you are born, you have the freedom to think, you have the freedom to express, you have the freedom to walk, you have the freedom to move. Those are freedoms that are there because of your existence. You cannot question it. It is inalienable, inseparable. But that needs to be told in the constitution in a positive, legal, formalistic way so that people do not violate it. If they violate it, they can be questioned. Then the real school, you can say 368, which gives enormous scope for amendment. The best example of the law and social transformation is Article 368. Another best example of real school in the Indian Constitution is local self-governance, which is one of my favorite areas in the Indian Constitution. The realist school, which wants society to come forward, because the positive school, it becomes static with the legal concepts that created at one point of time, needs to be tweaked. Who will tweak it? Legislature has no time. Time and again, the Supreme Courts or the Indian courts, they keep telling legislature and need to work. They have to find out. But if you say legislature need to work, it is also society which needs to work. When you say society need to work means we need to be socially, legally conscious, which we are not. As a result of which, local self-governance came into picture, in which you have been given the right to create law in your own space, in your own time and structure where you are living, because you know what the problems are. You can solve it. Even a local self-governance in relation to courts also have come. There is a bill which is pending in 2008, but we are not socially, legally conscious, as a result of which we don't know the values of it. This is the real school. So critical school is exactly where the law commission comes into picture, or even the court, which keeps telling the legislature that you need to change the law. Take the example of Vodafone case, take the example of the suicide, attempt to suicide in the Indian Penal Code, which was decriminalized. Take the example of Section 377, the liberty and the fraternity of the uh, different orientation to sexuality cannot be considered as a crime. You cannot discriminate them based on that, which the earlier judgment said that we are not a legislative body, we cannot change. But the Supreme Court came out very clearly, no, we need to make a amendment to it, and they informed the legislature that you have to bring a law to it, and people are working. So you can see even within the constitution or even within a good statute, all the four schools, they play very beautifully. Next.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Yes.
Yes, sir. And then this is the last question, sir. The question is, would you consider Hofield to be a legal positivist?
Who?
Hofield.
See, I don't know much, it is very difficult to say whether somebody X or Y or a particular theory is completely a legal positivist or a realist, because we don't know what is there in the mind. Take the example of Unger, who was one of the proponents of the critical legal school. He had his own ideas of even nihilism, which is based on the liberty of human existence. Take the case of Peter Gabel, who worked so much on the critical legal school. He also had ideas simultaneously on the importance of spirituality or higher consciousness in legal thinking. So to say Hoffman whether he was only a legal positivist or not, maybe I may not be able to say. Maybe you have to find out whether what are his later writings, whether he was like this or he was like that. I'm not that sure.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. And I would like to take one more question, sir. The question is legal realism in Indian judicature. Please elaborate.
Oh yeah. Take all the cases in which, say, for example, V.R. Krishna, Justice Khanna, they have spoken so beautifully in many of the judgments, in which they talk about, for example, I will give you a few examples which people can uh, read. The one case is Rangadurai, the case of Rangadurai in professional legal ethics, very popular case, in which V.R. Krishna talks about the importance of section 34 of the Advocates Act and the professional misconduct which he talks about. If a lawyer commits a misconduct, what should we do? Should we punish him? He discusses the importance of rule, the importance of deterrence, the importance of transformation, the importance of statute, the importance of constitution, the importance of the nobility of the profession. Just taking one provision, how much he discusses. All these show their beautiful, expansive thinking, which is nothing but the realist understanding in which he feels the Advocates Act, which was set in 1961, is not able to cater to the modern requirements in which the professional misconduct keeps on changing its dimensions. How do we address it? So he talks about transformation, he talks about the rule of law, he talks about the deterrence value, punitive measures, the preventive measures, and so on. Take the case of where the Indian Supreme Court considered postcard as a writ petition, which is a very great adventure. Take the case of so many cases, Section 377, which was decriminalized. Attempt to commit suicide, which was also decriminalized. Take the case of NDPS Act, in which first-time offenders should not be given punishment, rather they should be given treatment. Take the case of Mental Health Care Act, in which therapies are suggested. So all these show the realist thinking, not only in judiciary, but also in legal systems, but also the executive performance and the governance of it. You can see the natural, positive, real and critical, and the modern requirement, the future requirement in legislature, in executive, as well as in judiciary. We need to expand. It is our duty to do that as a legal researcher. In whatever subjects that you are fond of, you have to bring that. Yes.
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to continue with, I would like to invite Mr. Abhishek Raj, sir, for vote of thanks.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Hey, Kaushal, am I
Yes,
audible
sir.
to all of you?
Yes, sir. You are audible, sir.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
and for the clarity of voice and due to weak network, I will have to keep my video off. Sorry for that. Okay. I, Abhishek Raj, Assistant Professor of
Abhishek sir,
ICFAI Law
please
School.
speak loud.
I, Abhishek Raj, Assistant Professor of ICFAI Law School, express my gratitude to Dr. Parameswaran sir, who enlightened us with his words of wisdom and quenched the thirst of knowledge and helped us achieving the objective of this lecture series. Thank you, sir. I hope in future also we will be having the opportunity to hear you. I would also like to convey my thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Sir, Professor Dr. Muddu Vinay, Registrar, Sir, Brigadier Rajiv Sethi, in charge of ICFAI Law School, Professor Dr. Yugal Kishore, Sir, and Academic Coordinator, Mrs. Monica Kharola, Ma'am, for providing us valuable guidance and support. I am also thankful to the other faculty coordinator of the lecture series, Mr. Rohit Shukla, who helped me to make this series a success. I must congratulate the faculty conveners, Mr. Kausal Pandey and Ekta Gehlawat, for their sincere efforts. Basically, both are the pillars for the organizing this event. I also congratulate to our student conveners, Ms. Muskan, Mr. Akshar Jain and Mr. Karan Upadhyay for their hard work. I would like to give my special thanks to all the eminent participants like Professor Preeti Saxena ma'am, DBAU Central University Lucknow, Professor Preeti Misra ma'am, Dr. Bhanu Pratap from Lucknow University, other academicians, professionals, and students. Last but not the least, I render my thanks to Mr. Akhilesh Singh for his contributing by providing technical assistance to conduct the series smoothly. Thank you once again. Thank you, sir.
So we are, sir, we are very much thankful to you.
Thank you,
Holding
thank you,
hands.
thanks a lot.
So because your support and cooperation and the way you have narrated this journey, all the schools have been properly discussed and characteristics have come out. And it's
Yes.
wonderful. It's really wonderful, sir. I'm very much
Okay.
thankful to you. We are
So
all
I thank,
enlightened. Thank you.
yes,
Thank
I
you, sir.
thank the ICFI Law School. I thank you personally. I thank the coordinator and each and everyone and all the participants. I know that I may not be able to do justice for a vast topic, the most interesting topic in just 45 to 50 minutes, but whatever that I have given, I shared it with out of love and passion for this subject. So the participants are requested to write to me in case you need any clarification. I can share some thoughts on that. Thank you. Thanks a lot for each and
Thank
every.
you, sir.
Thank you. Namaste. Bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.